Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. Nathan is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, richardallenmiller.com. Let me spell that for you. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. And, yeah, it looks like it's the signal has settled down. Okay. Hey, Rick, welcome.
Good morning, Vincent. I'm not sure I'm here yet.
Good.
Even Nathan understood that. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, Nathan he's our engineer, and he's a lot of fun to be with. He's always positive, and he is a musician.
Always.
And he plays up Minnesota way. I would love to travel up there. So next time I'm up there, I would like to arrange it so that I can go visit where he's playing and see him. That's and maybe someday he'll be able to do a broadcast with me whenever he'd like, and we can talk about life as a musician. He's a radio engineer and a musician, a very talented guy. So hey, Nathan, thanks for engineering for us today. So, Rick, I've been thinking about some of these superstorms that we've been having, and I remember talking to one of the guys on the county roads and bridges department, and he said, "Wow, these once in 500-year storms, we seem to be having them every year or two, and we don't have enough dirt to fill in the ditches, so sides of the road you can drive off and half of your car will disappear because the ditches are 4 feet deep, and they're really, really, like vertical drops." Well, I was looking at some of these storms, and they're more and more frequent, and they're more and more devastating. What do you think's going on? Norm Shealy asked me if I thought that the evil empire was involved, and my answer was man. I believe man is involved partially, and I believe the evil empire is involved partially. And then the other component would be nature. What do you think?
Well, it is presumptuous to think that we could move celestial bodies. And, there's something way more in strength and power and knowledge than man, God. And so there is, just in history, doing ice formation, looking at, drilling into Antarctica, pulling up ice core samples, and looking at historically what has happened on Earth. We are in a cycle that is irchangeable. You can't change it. It has been this way. It is now again being this way, and has been written about in Bibles, historical, etc., that aside from man's participation, there's something else going on Earth, across the board. And weather and the changes in weather are a metaphor for other changes that are happening within man. And historically, now with all the different discoveries of different kinds of races of man that have been on Earth from anthropology, we've been here before. We are here now. It is about change. And the only way that is healthy is to look at this as an opportunity. There's nothing you can do about it. It is written in stone, as God might do, and whether or not it's them doing it, we doing it, or us all doing it, that's presumptuous, and I don't know what it all means. I'm like everybody else. I'm the length, girth, and width of what we know, and I know that I don't know. I believe in weather modification is absolutely going on. The storms that you suggest are 500-year records, epochs, and so we are literally at the end of days. And there will most likely be blood. That means there will be a lot of deaths here, there, Mexico, with the earthquakes that are happening, the solar flares that are coming off the sun now. I know now, when I told you that the sun used to be yellow and now it's white, I know now why that is, having to do with the Van Allen belt and the absorption coefficient of what the sun is putting out and what the earth is able to and not absorb. Some of that is man, most of that is not. There has been a pole shift, so quite obviously there will be weather changes. The clocks that I'm familiar with darkness and lightness, equinoxes and so on, they're off from what I remember. We have another equinox coming up, a time change. When is the time change occurring? Do you remember? Is it in October or November?
Nathan, do you know when the time change is?
I can look it up quick enough on the internet. I just haven't.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll get to that.
But there's that, and there's all of what's happening now around us. And I can tell you, my age is part of it. I'm starting to feel my age in terms of my friendships with friends. I've had a friend that died unexpectedly, I mentioned, that happened unexpectedly. Someone I've known for more than 50 years, and his death served a wonderful event for me in putting me back in touch with friends I have not seen or heard from in 40 years. And it's wonderful from that point of view, and yet it's frightening. And I don't know what it all means, except that I'm along for the ride, and I don't have any control. If control is a fantasy, and that has to do with the country I'm living in, the county I live in, and the resident home I currently enjoy. I have no control on any of that. And so I'm trying to somehow assimilate all of these changes as beneficial in that change is the rule, and it allows me an opportunity to make changes within myself.
I was listening intently to what you've been saying, Rick, and same thing has happened here. I lost a friend who was a U.S. Army major weeks ago. Just lost another friend, U.S. Navy, about 10 days ago. Lost some other friends. And I'm not sure if it's our age. You know, we're all getting older, and this is a natural thing, but man, oh man, these guys suffered, both with cancer before they died. And, you know, I've told a story before that when I was growing up in the 1950s, my grandmother would say, don't go over to that house over there. They've got cancer. And it was rare. It was like a plague that was in that house. But it was only in that house. Nobody else had it. And it was extremely rare in my understanding. And now it's not rare, it's every family. And I think we've done a lot of this to ourselves. I think we've done it with the toxins in our food. I think we've done it because of corporate greed, individual greed, the sum of individual greed, at the corporate level. We've done it with people who are in the garbage business, the trash hauling business. I've seen it with my own eyes. I saw in a section on the East Coast where they had a landfill, and it was a gravel quarry. And what that means is they would have large equipment that would scoop the gravel out of the earth. And when they were done, they left a big hole. It was a big, wide hole. So what do you do with a big, wide hole? Well, the county, through its infinite wisdom, said, let's put our garbage in that hole. And they did. They put all kinds of garbage in that hole to fill up the hole, and then they were going to cover up the hole. So they took the gravel out and sold it, left the hole. So they sold the gravel. Then they charged people to fill up the hole with trash. And I saw a tractor trailer go in one night. It stopped at the little check-in station. Guy went in, got out of his truck, went into the little hut, came out a minute later or so, and the guy in the hut pointed to where he was to unload, and this guy just unloaded the tractor trailer, thousands and thousands of gallons. I'm talking about an 18-wheeler, and just unloaded, and the soil was so porous that there was no puddle. This tractor trailer just emptied its load, and it went right into the ground. And then, a few years later, Ted Kennedy was on the big screen talking about the cancer rate in that particular village. And how
Bendix Corporation, yeah, there's been, cancer from batteries, and I remember Bendix Corporation going through one up in Vermont, New Hampshire.
Tom's River Chemical was in the area. Tom's River Chemical. And people were dying. I'll tell you a little more when we come back. So, Rick, I saw with my own eyes this 18-wheeler dump some liquid at a landfill in the East Coast. And the neighbors were on television, the village, and they were saying that there's cancer everywhere, all kinds of cancer, skin cancer. There was intestinal cancer. Yeah,
that stuff will get in the groundwater.
It was. It got into the groundwater.
That's what killed my little girl and that stepdaughter, Michelle, was Bendix dumping toxins into the water, into the ground, that got into the groundwater, and then started a group lawsuit against them in leukemia. Mm-hmm. That's what she died of, aplastic leukemia from drinking bad water as a child.
And George Wheelock, I mentioned his death, but I didn't mention his name this broadcast. U.S. Army Major just died at...
by the way, I need more volume 50s. On you, just a wig.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
How about, is that a little better?
No, but it's fine.
So George...
It's terrible. I can't even hear the commercial because it's so quiet. I have to hold the phone to my ear, even on speakerphone, and I can't. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I have a picture of two cell phones ringing with corn in the middle popping into popcorn. Mm-hmm. I have a video of that. That's the radiation coming off a cell phone when it rings.
I had a discussion a couple of days ago with a young man about cell phones, and this guy's about 31. And I was explaining to him about how cell phones use a frequency in the microwave band, and how you can cook in the microwave oven a hot dog. You can put one in there. I'm not suggesting you eat one, but you can put one in there and watch it. Well, wait for it to cook. Don't watch it. Don't look through the door. But you can cook it in about a minute, or you can cook that hot dog at lower power. Let's say 1 to 4 watts with a cell phone, and it would take a lot longer, but you could still cook it with the same frequencies on low power. So the point I tried to make is that you're cooking your brain, because the antenna for a cell phone is omnidirectional. It will let you talk regardless of the direction you're facing. So if you have one of those against your head and you're facing north, it'll connect to the cell tower. If you're facing east, it'll connect to the cell tower, and so forth. And so I mentioned that to him, and 31-year-old guy, bright guy, intelligent guy, just wasn't aware of that. So, Rick, not everybody is paying attention to the kind of things that we pay attention to.
Well, look at what they've done with high school kids walking in a long line together like zombies. They're all looking down. They're all involved and not at home.
Mm-hmm. I did something that I don't normally do. The last few days, I happened to be in Springfield, Missouri. I was getting a bite to eat, and I was looking around at the tables around me, and every table had someone on a cell phone. Every table, and the most amazing thing to me was going out to eat with someone, and this was like a lunch kind of a thing. Going out to eat with someone and then spending time on the cell phone. What kind of a lunch date is that? What kind of a social event is that? When you just go by yourself, or forget going by yourself, just bring a sandwich or something, and sit down and look at your cell phone. I mean, these two people were sitting that I'm thinking of at the moment were sitting opposite each other. Kind of like a date, but I think they were married. Sitting opposite each other, not a word was spoken for maybe 10 minutes. How's that possible? And that indicates that there's something really wrong with us. But getting back to the Superfund problem in Toms River, this happens to be Toms River NJ. There were several companies that were involved in dumping in Toms River. And it became a Superfund cleanup site because the cancers were out of control. And who did that? Greedy corporations did that. I mean, this truck driver that I saw didn't say, "Hey, listen, I've got a tractor trailer. It's got a tanker on the back. Let me go find some trash and go bring it to this site, and I'll do it all by myself." I don't think he did that. I think someone hired him, paid him, and he took the money, and they paid the money, and the guy in Little Hut at the dump took the money. Last, I'm going to read a very short article. It's from the EPA, the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Superfund site, Ciba Geigy, CIBA-GEIGY Corporation. The Ciba Geigy Chemical Corporation is located in Dover Township, New Jersey, a facility that manufactured dyes, pigments, resins, and epoxy, operated there from 1952 to 1990. Sludge and processed waste were disposed of on site, contaminating soil and groundwater. EPA has focused its cleanup efforts on treating contaminated groundwater and soil and digging up buried drums and disposing them off-site. Currently, about 1.2 million gallons of groundwater are treated each day. More than 47,000 drums have been removed. Soils were treated using bioremediation, a process that uses natural microorganisms to digest contaminants and breaks them down into non-hazardous components. And the soils were backfilled on site. The site does not pose an immediate threat to human health and the environment. Rick, I'm not buying much of what was written in this article by the EPA. I'll tell you why. I mean, yeah, do I believe that they moved more than 47,000 drums of hazardous waste? Sure, I believe that they moved a lot of them. But how is moving them fixing the problem?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, and so they're treating about 1.2 million gallons of groundwater each day. Okay, so what does that mean, class? Does that mean that they're taking the water out of the ground and filtering it and putting it back? I don't think that's what it means. I think what it means, buried in this language that they've used, is I think that the village is using about 1,200,000 gallons of water, and they're putting it through the standard water treatment processing plant for consumption and washing dishes and flushing toilets. But I don't think they're fixing the groundwater problem. I don't think they can. And so what they did was, it says that they used bioremediation. Rick, does bioremediation fix everything?
No, and what's happening to Fukushima? What's happening to, the questions more questions of concern are developing in every single front. Why are these not being discussed nationally, internationally? Why is it talking about the dollar?
I think USA Prepares was one of the very, very, very first to discuss Fukushima when the day after I said it was the worst man-made disaster since Noah's flood. That was the beginning of our discussions.
It isn't anymore. That's the scary part. Just in your area, the New Madrid fault line is changing. And with that, there are 20 Fukushima-like, Daiichi-like reactors from GE now all leaking. The one in Florida, the one in New York, up in Indian Point, they're all leaking. And yet, they're not in the media, they're not in the news, and they are creating serious problems. Then you move to waste management. And the idea that we don't even have a clue how to get rid of all the plastic that is now killing our oceans. And I'm not kidding. It's over. That's DuPont and Rockefeller in the early years of overpackaging, using plastic. And where is all that plastic going now? Is it breaking down? I have never seen those bags that they give over paper break down in nature. It's supposed to be made from Lysol. They're not. There are laws in Safeway here locally that will say you're not supposed to use those, and yet all the Safeway stores are still using them. I don't understand what's going on, and I'm so overwhelmed with my personal things that I don't notice it. And then when I do notice it, I get very concerned, and then I'm distracted again to something else. And the distraction is causing me to miss the very most important points about quality of life.
I'm looking at an article on Bloomberg, and it just dovetails with what you said, plastic. And so it talks about, this is Bloomberg.com, and the article is about Nestle making billions, that's billions of dollars, bottling water it pays nearly nothing for. And it says the company's operation in Michigan reveals how it's dominated the industry by going to economically depressed areas with lax water laws. So they get the water, they put it in bottles. People think they're drinking, spring water or something like that. They may be drinking municipal water that's filtered. They may be drinking aquifer water, depending on the company that produces the water. But according to this article, it says, quote, daily we're looking at 3.5 million bottles potentially. So where do those 3.5 million empty water bottles go? A day. So they say that they have silos there that hold 125 tons of plastic resin pellets to provide the raw material for the bottles. They're molded into shapes at temperatures reaching 400 degrees before being filled, capped, inspected, labeled, laser printed at the location. And to complete a bottle takes less than 25 seconds. So these guys have the capability of producing how many? 3.5 million bottles a day. And you're right. That's just this one company. That's a big company, yeah. But 3.5 million bottles a day. Where do they go? And I'm sure that most localities do not have a, what do they call those? A deposit on these bottles. So we just throw them away. Show me someone other than maybe you and me, Rick, or maybe some of our class members. If we happen to have one of those bottles, show me someone other than USA Prepares, students and instructors, who might save that bottle and reuse it. Other than us, I don't think they get reused very often. I just throw them away. Now, that's just the plastic water bottles. Now, what about the bread wrappers? What about the these little plastic trays that muffins come in? and other breads.
Or pies.
And lettuce. Lettuce is wrapped. Pies, yep. All this stuff. Didn't used to be like this, Rick. We used to have milkmen that would deliver milk in glass bottles, and they'd be washed out. Coca-Cola used to come in glass bottles, and there'd be a deposit on them. No one threw them out.
Everybody's
Hardly
in a
anybody.
hurry.
Yeah. And, and this ties into something else. We were talking about these superstorms, the hurricanes. And, I was thinking about Puerto Rico. And I said to Mrs. Finelli this morning, the governor said of Puerto Rico, we must work together. We can recover if we work together. And I said to her, it won't happen. We don't work together. And I can prove it. I mean, I can prove that we had USA Prepares meetups every Friday. Had them every Monday also. And I asked the group if one of us needed help, would we help that person? Oh yeah, sure. I'm in. Yep, I'd help. And then one day we had need to help one of us who had no place to live. He didn't really want a place to live. He just wanted a place to park his van so he could sleep in his van and have a home base. He didn't want electricity. He didn't want anything, just a parking spot in the Springfield area, where he could conduct the rest of his affairs, business, whatever he did. No one in Springfield, Missouri, who was at the meetup, offered to let this guy park at their place. Not one person. So what I'm saying is, I know that people say one thing and do another. And I was thinking about, these people in Puerto Rico, or in Texas, or in Florida, and the water's rushing down the streets, and people are being rescued by do-gooders, good Samaritans with these rowboats, or motorboats, and they're rescuing people, and they're taking them from where they could drown to dry land, or where it's a little higher. So let's extrapolate that story. So a guy or a gal gets pulled out of the water onto the boat and says, "You just took me from my front porch. We couldn't see my front porch because it was underwater. That was my house, the one that didn't have a roof on it. It's destroyed. Thank you for rescuing me. By the way, I have no place to stay. I've lost all my money. Can you put me up for a couple weeks?" And then I think the guy in the boat would say, whoa, wait, hold it. What I'm doing for you stops with this boat. I'm not putting you up. I'm not feeding you. I'm just getting you out of the way for today. That's all I'm doing. I can see that happening, Rick. I can see it happening over and over and over again. So this business about we all need to work together, we're all in it together, we're all going to help each other. It's hard to believe that many people would participate in helping each other to the extent that it's needed. Because I've seen it over and over. How long? I've seen it for 5 years. I've seen it with the people who came to the meetups. Now, these are people I know pretty well. I'd see them week after week after week for years, and they pledged to help each other. They knew each other. They'd sit down sometimes next to each other. We would have free seminars. We would teach people how to grow gardens, grow mushrooms. You taught at these meetups in person. And still, these prepper types didn't offer to help one of our own. And I can see that happening in Puerto Rico, in Texas, and Florida as well. We'll be right back. NBC News says in one of their articles, all power out as Hurricane Maria's winds, floods crush Puerto Rico. And some of the verbiage in this article says that Hurricane Maria is likely to have destroyed Puerto Rico. The island's emergency director said Wednesday after the monster storm ripped off roofs, buildings, and flooded homes. It looks like power may be out for 4 to 6 months. The internet's down. It's going to be difficult to get messages, showing the pictures and video clips of what this destruction is like. The article goes on to say it's the strongest storm to hit Puerto Rico since 1928. Imagine what it would be like to try to rebuild without electricity. Okay, so, we'll get our cordless drills and cordless saws but what are you going to plug them into? Unless you have some kind of solar power generation. So think about that. Think about what this is going to be like. Where were these people going to go? Were they going to go to the north side of the island, the south, the east, the west? Obviously, you want to go uphill, but the F5 hurricane was so forceful that it destroyed so many buildings. Not a lot of places to go. And so now I look at Florida and I look at Texas and I look at Puerto Rico. Rick, I was thinking, why would this happen? Is it possible? Is it possible that this was engineered? Is it possible that this is a way for the United States to maybe avoid war as a remedy to fix our economy? Could this be massive enough to get us back into building, reconstruction, focus our efforts in the repair and restore direction? And is that possible, or some people are thinking that?
Vincent, I am missing half of our conversation because your volume is very low, and when we go to commercial, I can't even hear it to determine when we come back on the air, and I don't know why that is, because I've never. It seems like it's a problem that is increasing with me and my communication. Please, if there's any possible way for both you and Nathan to turn things up a little bit, I just absolutely do not want to hold this phone as close to my head as I am.
Nathan, is there anything you can do to crank up the volume?
You're now
eating.
Distorting, but it's
okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm so sorry. I know now that there is a concerted effort to somehow summarily take me out. I am blessed by some people. Terry Hitt, I cannot praise her enough. Look at what she has done for my website. And Russ, he calls him Russ Rengi, has been the best tech support. And Helen Downs, I just cannot praise any of them as much as enough. They're just, thank you, all of you, for understanding my plight. I am overwhelmed right now with correspondence. Everybody wants to ask a question of me, and I'm trying to be as accessible as I've always in the past been, and I'm falling behind. And I'm falling behind on a number of areas. Thank you for supporting my new metaphysics audiobooks. The first shipments went out, and they were being summarily destroyed by the U.S. Postal Service. And now that's stopped, and I've got a new way of shipping that will armor.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's working. So, Rick, USPS.com, aren't .coms reserved for corporations?
Yeah, and your voice now is distorted, but no volume.
Okay.
That's better.
All right, we'll see. I'll talk to Nathan during the break and see what we can work out.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Class, we're going into the top of the hour in news and commercial announcements. I want to let you know that there's an RK Prepper show September 30 and October 1 in Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City, Missouri. Doc Wallach will be there. Consider going. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us, and let me give you the website, richardalanmiller.com, richardalanmiller.com. And if you'd like to peruse the website and purchase his metaphysics audio series, you can do it right there on the website. Rick, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, thank you. That's my current only source of income, and basically my attempt to battle Amazon that is still currently bootlegging many of my titles. The Metaphysics audiobooks, there are 15 of them when we're finally complete. The next 2 are about ready for release. Thank you, Russell Rengi. He is dedicated and has become a partner by helping me publish books that I would not have otherwise done. In 1990, PC Link became AOL, and Mark Hume, who owned that, hired me to teach metaphysics and create a series of download libraries like Shareware that would allow people to want to join social networking. This is the beginning of it. And at that time, I taught graduate-level courses on metaphysics, which will lead to my new foundation of magic as an advanced form of physics with a mystery school. And these will talk about all kinds of different things to include religions and other related meta, meaning beyond. I did it for 11 years, from 1990 to 2001, and now they're available as audiobooks, 9 weeks each course, with the download libraries allowing the rare manuscripts that I used from those to quote from different Bibles and other kinds of things that I would teach during that period. Meta means beyond, which means worldviews that are beyond just the physical plane. This is me, as a physicist, trying to move the advancements of physics toward the next generation of sciences. Long time ago in a faraway universe. Recently, Grace Thorne and others have been helping me sort out my past life with libraries, and I am finding treasures I had forgotten. I have now a whole bunch of new possible books on brain drivers and their uses. Julie's boy is interested in brain drivers, and my question was to him, he's all excited to experiment with them, and my question was, what are you going to do with these brain drivers? I mean, they're tools. What are you going to do with that hammer? And life integration to change beliefs and belief systems like you would a pair of clothing are the first tools that you can use with these kinds of things. And the very fact that we were born in America predisposes us to such religions as Christianity. But if you had been born in Afghanistan, you would not be a Christian. You would be a Muslim. And I am now beginning to realize that our belief systems are tools in a toolbox to be used like a sweater would during the winter. Now, there are certain sweaters I am never going to throw away. I just can't wear them during the summer because they're not appropriate. And that's a metaphor for the kinds of courses I will be teaching in audiobooks so that you understand that our belief systems are semi-arbitrary and that, as such, may be used as a tool toward advancing our consciousness.
Rick, what do these audio series, what do they cost? So if someone wants to buy them,
they're $15 a disc, or $10 in groups of 3, and I'm going to try to put them on specials as I come out with new ones so that people can add to their things. I have used in later courses such books as A Brain, Symbol, and Human Experience by Laughlin, the Aquilian McManus, on concepts like cybernetic anthropology, the way you lay out your homestead or your city to affect your consciousness. You know, that's a new form of anthropology that if you put your slums here and you have your water there, it will create a totally different kind of music that would come out of Chicago over that which might come out of Washington, D.C. And the way it's laid out structurally in a consciousness. It's the next level of awareness in our group mentatting or memes that we would use. That's where memes came from, out of the concept of cybernetic anthropology. Actually, archetypes and the fact that I have been able to integrate Jungian psychotherapy into my physics has given me a much broader worldview, like where a Buddhist could be a Christian, but a Christian could not be a Buddhist. Your worldviews allow more access to different universes, and you choose these worldviews as a tool, not an absolute. And it's sometimes better to look at the world as a Buddhist, and sometimes it's better to look at it as a staunch Christian. And Christianity is changing right now. Fortunately or unfortunately, the Church of Rome and some of the other charismatic forms of religions are starting to be seen for what they really are and what they really are not. Churches are there to afford fellowship, where you have a certain belief that is important to you. You go to this church to reinforce that belief system and yourself. And beyond that, the truth of everything lies within each of us. And from that point of view, I'm going to suggest that there are as many different religions as there are human beings, that we are all different, that's what made us God's favored, was our choice, and that to choose your values carefully, and then to actually walk that talk. And that's the distinction between ethics and morals.
Rick, as you're saying that, I was thinking about some cities seem to be more successful than others, and you're talking about the layout. Where you
Chattanooga, for example, right now produces 40% of the food that they eat in that city, and that's because every single restaurant in Chattanooga has a greenhouse right next to the restaurant itself. Now, why are we not integrating some of those concepts in our more rural communities? This
I can tell you that
delivery is going to get us all in trouble shortly.
I can tell you that right here at the farmhouse in Missouri, where I'm broadcasting from right now, if I want to have some tomatoes and some peppers and some other vegetables, I just go right out the kitchen door, walk, maybe 20 feet, and there's the garden.
How is your mom doing? You haven't spoken to me about her gardening and her attempts to integrate into your lifestyle. How's she doing?
My mom is doing fine. She's in her mid-90s, and she went shopping at Sam's Club with our son, and so she wanted to buy some flower bulbs. Now, you might think she'd get 10 or 20. Not my mom. Nope. One box had 70 in it, and I think the other box had 120 in it, or 140. So she's got almost 200 flower bulbs that she's going to be planting. She's all excited about that. So is she active? Absolutely. Is she outside every day? Yep. And yesterday, I was connecting three more solar panels to our off-grid system, and so she was out there with me while I was doing that. So she's active, and class, if you've got a senior with you and you want to keep them young, well, you do things with them. Okay, you just don't say, by the way, here's the TV, here's the remote, and I'll check on you in a couple hours. That doesn't work. You've got to, people need to use it, or they will lose it. So what we do is we go for walks. We take her with us. Of course, she's a member of our family. She was here before I was here, so it's my duty, my pleasure, my honor to help my mom any way I can. I helped my dad as long as he was with us. He's since passed away, so but we took care of him while we could. As a matter of fact, and I've got, since you've mentioned this, I have a comment for our class. So many people who say, boy, my mom or their mom is living nearby, and they're running back and forth as their parents get older. Why don't you forget all that? Why don't you forget that and sell that house that they have, or move in with them, mom and dad, if you're still fortunate enough to have them, and spend time as a family the way you did when your mom and dad were raising you. And that's what we've done. We sold my mom and dad's house and built this house in Missouri, put everybody in the house. My mom and dad had their own section of the house. It was, a one wing or one area of the house. We all spend time in the kitchen. We spend a lot of time together. We'll watch videos together if that's what we're going to be doing. Whatever it is we do, we eat together, we play together, we work together. And I suggest that all of our broadcast class consider doing that as your parents get older. And here's why. And even your children, bring them in too if living in apartments. And here's why. So instead of having mom and dad having an insurance payment, an electric payment, and all those other bills that come in, well, you'll have one insurance bill. You'll have one food bill. Yeah, it'll be a little bigger. You'll have one electric bill. Yeah, it might be slightly bigger, okay? You'll have one tax bill. Cut down those costs and spend time with those who are most important to you. And that's what I do. And that's what my wife does. That's what our children do. That's what my mom does. And we've been doing it for well over a decade. I suggest you consider it. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us. Richard, ALAN Miller.com. Rick, there's a prepper show, RK Prepper Show, September 30th through October 1st. And it's in Kansas City, Missouri. Doc Wallach's going to be there. And class, if you'd like more information about this show, Kansas City, Missouri, September 30, October 1, 417-863-7149. 417-863-7149 for more information about the show. And you can meet USA Prepares Senior Instructor Dr. Joel Wallach in person, and you can spend some time with him. And if you want to learn how to start your own business, he'll help you with that too. Jim Stewart will be there. He'll be assisting Dr. Joel Wallach, and if you want to get signed up for the supplements, he'll help you with that. Brandy Brogdon, another USA Prepares instructor, will be there. I won't
be able to attend these because of my current income situations. I wished I could, because this is the way I get to physically meet all of you and spend time with people like you, Vincent, and Joey. I apologize to Joey and others. I have been blocked by Earthlink, so I'm unable to send email to anybody with Earthlink email, and I'm in the process of trying to figure it out as another distraction among all the roadblocks that are being dropped in front of me. Why would Earthlink ban me from sending email to anyone like Jeff Rentz or Joey? I don't understand. Did you know that was happening, that I'm unable to contact Joey?
Well, I didn't know about you're having trouble contacting Joey. Joey's a great resource. I really like Joey. He's a USA Prepares instructor. And Grace Thorne is visiting. Grace does not want to go on the air. She's embarrassed or something. I don't know. I love Grace, and I'm so glad that she's here. Yeah. She just walked in the door with her bear claws. That's what I loved about Grace. She always brought goodies with her. She's an excellent cook. But she doesn't. She's embarrassed and told me not to hand the microphone to her. Or I would have just automatically done that if she walked in. Yeah, she just sweated off her. Well, give my best. Give my best to Grace Thorne. Right, another USA Prepares instructor. And Rick, I guess what we are is an extended family, and of those who are on the air with us, and it's a wonderful extended family. I really value all the friendship and the kindness of USA Prepares. Rick, I've been thinking about this electric car fever that seems to be in the news. And, there are handouts that are being given to those with electric cars. For example, in Norway, there's an island. It's the island of Finnoy, Finnoway, I believe it's pronounced. And the greatest density of electric cars is there. And why is that? Well, it's because that you can use a tunnel to go from Finnoway to another part of Norway for free if you have an electric car. So you'll save maybe the equivalent of $6,000 a year in toll charges to go from Finnoway to the mainland. All right. Well, there's other places who have given incentives. Even in the United States, there was I think a $5,000 tax break if you had an electric car. And that's since been withdrawn. But so there are all kinds of financial incentives to have an electric car. Well, so what's the big deal about not having electric cars everywhere? Well, I can see a lot of them. One of the reasons that I don't have one is because they don't go very far. Now, I can tell you that in my old 1996 diesel Mercedes, 6-cylinder, non-turbocharged diesel, I can easily get 35 miles to the gallon, combined city and highway driving. Maybe 44 miles to the gallon on the highway if I don't exceed 55. Let's talk a little bit more about it. Richard Alan Miller's with us, RichardAlanMiller.com. And Rick, I was reading an article about electric cars, and I keep thinking about this. And I was at the gas pumps one day, months and months and months ago, and this guy pulled up, and he had one of those hybrid cars that gets, allegedly phenomenal mileage. And so it's gas and electric. And I said, wow, I didn't know those used gas, kind of pulling his leg. And he said, well, I got to get from Springfield to St. Louis. So maybe almost 200 miles. So he's trying to get to St. Louis, and he can't do it on the electric power, so he had to put gasoline in it. And so that's the real problem with electric cars. They don't go as far on a fill-up, if you will.
Well, I have something to say about this. A friend of mine just bought a new Chevrolet electric car, and you're correct. They're limited. And he has to plan his trips more carefully for recharging centers. However, what I'm doing is designing a umbrella that unfolds from the storage section of that car outward as a solar panel gathering recharging system that he carries with him anywhere. Further, that will limit him with weather, of course. You can grow those crystals to replace them just like you would carrots. And that's another book I'm going to write in the new Small Family Farm for the 21st Century. There will be a whole chapter in there on how to regrow solar panel crystals at home as a crop, just like everything else.
Well, Rick, that is the problem. Now, if we covered the entire skin of an electric car with solar panels, you could reach. Well, okay, but if we covered the entire skin, that would be a really neat way to have these vehicles recharge. And I can tell you that during this broadcast, about 40 minutes ago, I ran over to our solar charge controller, and I was measuring how much electricity I was generating in the sun with 3 electric panels. Now, these solar panels that I'm talking about, I just added 3, and I just wanted to know, I wonder how much energy they are generating. They are 3 panels. They are roughly 1 meter by 2 meters, so 3 feet wide 6 feet tall, rough dimensions. To be exact, it'd be 39 inches by 77 inches, times 3 panels, all wired in series. Morning sun, not full sun, but in the sun, maybe 150 watts. They're capable of producing 900 watts if everything is perfect, the right angle, the strong sunlight, and so forth. But I'm getting about 150 watts. So it would take a while to charge a car with solar panels. That's one thing. Now, the other thing is, I did a back of an envelope calculation. I wish I had it with me here. But from memory, I know that our power grid is not capable of replacing gasoline and diesel-powered cars and trucks with electric charging right now. Our power grid does not have enough electricity nor capacity to push that electricity through the wires that we have in our grid if we were to convert to electric vehicles right now for all of us. It could not happen.
I think that our future is to become more sovereign on a more personal level within ourselves, and that will be reflected in what we do in the external world in terms of food, power, and personal needs with communication and other things of that nature. One of the things that I really enjoy is when I do a journey and visit someone else's home. And I've always, like many of my friends now, bring something as a housewarming thing because it's a journey. And it's not a casual visit. It's more like special. There's darshan involved. The use of cell phones, the use of communication that we currently enjoy has taken that whole concept and thrown it out the window. And there used to be a time when Ecotopia, when you took a bicycle, not an automobile. That's a book that everybody should read. I grew up next door to Ernest Callenbach, who wrote a book called Ecotopia, where the borders of America were closed in 1984 and opened again in 1999 when they showed the free state of Jefferson, allowing reporters in to see how we live differently. And that book, Ecotopia, has led to newer books like The Voice of the Planet by Michael Tobias and others that are in ecological systems and the way we might want to revision our way of living. And I would urge everyone to read Ecotopia. It came out just after Animal Farm and other books of that nature on what our society was leading us toward. And guess what? Here we are at the end of days with exactly those situations that were described in these earlier visionary books of how we might want to revision our way of being with ourselves. I didn't mean to cause the big pregnant pause, but that's what I do here, is try to drop the A-bombs so that people stop for a moment and really take a closer look at what we're doing with ourselves. And it starts internally.
I agree. And, you know, one of the things that happens to people is they are led in mass by the media. And I'm not willing to be led by the media because I look at these articles about some of the talking heads in media and how they melt down and how their lives are in chaos. And, you know, why would I want to follow what someone reads on a screen written by someone else when the reader's life is in chaos to begin with? I'm talking about, like, you look at many actors and actresses, and their lives are in shambles. Well, getting back to electricity and electric cars, I'm reading an article on the screen right now. It says ideas.4brad, the number 4brad.com. Okay, it compares electricity to gasoline. It says the reason to compare gasoline and kilowatt hours is to find out the cost of driving. This is a pretty reasonable comparison. At the national average of 11 cents per kilowatt hours, the 320 watt hours per mile of the Nissan Leaf is about 3.5 cents per mile. That's pretty good, and about 85 miles for the cost of a $3 gallon of gasoline. Electricity is cheaper than gasoline, no doubt. To be fair, gasoline has about a 15% tax put on it to support the roads, which electric cars should also pay, and that would bring it down to 75 miles per gallon based on the dollar. The price of electricity also varies locally. In California, the tier system makes heavy users pay 32 cents a kilowatt hour, which would make electric cars more expensive than gasoline.
So this evening, later, the individual that John Gelwick that started biochar is setting up a conference call with Sterling University. Sterling University in Vermont is a agroforest college that does hands-on growing, and it may well be that this entire university now is going to try to take on my PDF system of publishing a bunch of my agricultural books by a bunch of graduate students with hands-on. That's what Sterling University does, hands-on. If they talk about growing crops, students are required to grow those crops, so they could have a serious hands-on situation. And they're very interested in doing this, and that's the man that started the biochar movement. And I'm just very blessed with some of the people I'm now beginning to meet. And I have people that just came in, including Grace and several others that Nick that just joined me here because I have meetings with them right following this. It's just a parade. If I don't get to certain emails, please understand I am so overwhelmed now. I can't hardly assimilate anything. I have a guest book that Julie just got out that is required now by anybody visiting me. They write something in that book, and imagine what that book will look like in another 10 years.
I love it. You know, Rick, I wanted to do something similar here in the village where our farm is. And there's a downtown. Downtown is like a farmer's cooperative and a post office. And there used to be a general store there. And there was one building, and I thought, you know, I could renovate that building, and we could serve lunch there or breakfast, and we could broadcast from there. And people traveling through this part of Missouri, you know, might want to pull in and sit in and do kind of what you're doing right there. But you know what? There was absolutely no interest in this part of the world. People don't listen to the radio and they don't read. So it's a little different where you are. There's more people who listen to the radio and more people who are interested in reading.
Came all the way from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
yeah. They travel here to be here. Being here. That's my best actor. What was it that did Being Here with Peter Sellers? That was his last movie, and I'd like everybody to remember that is possibly the most famous and best movie ever, Being Here with Peter Sellers.
Okay, my favorite is Jericho, and it's on Netflix right now. And that is required homework, in my opinion, for all of our students. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and I'll be right back. Rick, you know, there's evidence now that Cuba, the country of Cuba, has launched a science fiction sonic weapon at America, and 21 diplomats were hit by hearing and memory loss, according to DailyMail.com. And there may be even mild brain damage after this suspicious attack.
What kind of...
And the article goes on to say that... Well,
do you know anything
I don't
about
know
the
that
weapon?
because the article...
Okay, yeah, send
No, there's no information well, there is no information that I've seen about that. I guess that they're saying it's either a very high frequency called ultrasound or a very low one, infrasound. So that's all they're saying, but they're not saying exactly what, the frequency that's being used is or are. But they're saying that ultrasound waves are generated by an electrically charged crystal that converts electrical energy into sound waves, and the estimates are that the sonic attackers would need a transmitter the size of a car to generate hearing loss from 150 feet away. But they're saying that in Cuba, that our diplomats are suffering as a result of this invisible but sound device.
Maybe
now, in Missouri,
is it so that it's not, because obviously the signal would be attenuated, and so they get them close where they can use the weapon, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I would think so. And it says whether they heard anything or not, the consequences have been unmistakable. Symptoms ranging from nosebleeds, nausea, dizziness, and severe headaches, and mild brain damage and permanent hearing loss are the consequences of this.
Oh, wow.
Now, it says that some of the victims, they're calling them victims, once they've left Cuba, have stopped hearing these noises that they've heard. So, but this is a new frontier. We talked about it maybe over a year ago here on USA Prepares, that the state of Missouri has a couple of these sound weapons or these sound cannons. Who in their right mind would build something like this?
Well, the government did years ago. That's what's been used against Branch Davidian, what we call synthetic telepathy. That was in the higher gigahertz bandwidth, ultrasound, and then infrasound. Infrasound was originally developed by France to stop or set up standing waves on the enemy, on their heart, give them heart attacks right in the field. It required a tremendous amplifier. That's why it wasn't. It's like a bass. Your boombox requires a lot of power to go to that boom, 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 boom. That requires a tremendous amount of energy to project that wave without it being attenuated or absorbed into normal, space. That's why I would suggest that they meet their victims close at hand, like in a room where they can generate this thing, not across the street, not across the country. It won't, HAARP. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. HAARP was
okay, well, Rick,
there was what?
I'm looking at.
I'm not getting your.
Are you
voice.
talking to someone at your end?
Yeah,
okay.
we're being interrupted.
Here's an article. It's called State.com. I'm sorry, Slate, SLATE. And there's a picture, and it says, this is the sound cannon used against protesters in Ferguson, Missouri. And this is a government-owned device used to get, and it says an hour after SWAT teams arrived, streets were completely blocked off, helicopters were circling, and officers were pouring tear gas onto this area, the surrounding neighborhood, launching flashbangs, shooting rubber bullets, and using noise-based weapons.
Yeah.
Using noise-based weapons.
That's
so we have
synthetic telepathy. I'll send you a technical
Rick, thanks so much
on that if you'd like.
Great. Thanks so much, Rick, for being with us. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.